Look, Chef! It's the new Imperial Guard Codex! Oh, the Codex? Fresh from the High Lords of Terror. My goodness. Let me give it to you so you can read it. Let me have a look at this. Thank you very much, good sir. You're most welcome. Tally ho to you. Well, this seems...
Well, they would have been alright when Cadia fell if they had this. Welcome back, Freeview, to another faction focus. Long time coming.
Oh yeah.
The Astra Militarum have arrived.
And a hearty tally-ho to you all.
Tally-ho. Tally-ho to you.
Tally-ho to you.
Tally-ho to you.
And you.
And you.
And you, especially you.
And you.
Yes.
Thank you, Games Workshop, for sending us the Cadia Stands box, which contains this illustrious special edition Tome of Power.
Very beautiful tome, I might add.
Very nice.
It is gorgeous in the artwork.
The artwork is stunning.
This is the special edition one that comes in the Cadia Stands box, hence the lovely artwork.
Yes. So again, thank you, Games Workshop, for sending us that for review and perusal and for sharing its contents with you lot at home. Whilst you're here, make sure, if you have not done so already, to give us a like and a subscribe. Comment down below how you are looking forward to the Guard, as well as maybe giving us a check out on Demand, where we have loads more content. Following up this video will be the top combos and units. But for now, we will dive into this tome itself. So let's kick things off with the army rules. Things kick off as you would expect with a 9th edition codex. All your troops are OBSEC, and there's also the chain of command rule, which is effectively similar to like the Necron rules.
Yeah.
It's if you have this kind of a character, they must be your warlord. So basically you can't have a Psyker as your warlord if you've got an officer in the army.
Yeah.
Likewise, if you've got a commandant, so that's the new Castellan, or someone like Ursula Creed, they have the commandant keyword, they must be the warlord. And of course, if you have the glorious horseboy himself, he must be your warlord. This is nothing new nor surprising, really, because that's how 9th edition codexes have been working.
There's a nice hierarchy within the officers, I must say, like the commandant keywords, you kind of get like a fluffy aspect there of certain officers are obviously far more important to the Imperial Guard than others, which is nice to see.
Yeah, it's nice, it's fluffy, it's not really that impactful on your overall gameplay, but it's just a nice little blend of the fluff and the crunch.
Exactly.
We then, of course, have your regimental doctrines, your chapter tactics, as it were. Now, it's worth pointing out that Tempestus Scions are still in here, but they do not get regimental doctrines.
No, they don't. No.
They do not get any of that stuff at all. In addition, they count as troops as long as the only things in a particular detachment are Tempestus, Auxilia, or Commissars, I believe it is. Officio Prefectus.
Yeah, which is your commissar group of the officers, essentially.
Yeah. So, again, nothing really has changed there. The downside is of course, you don't get a regimental doctrine.
Yes.
But you get enough stuff. We'll cover the Scions a bit later. But the regimental doctrines themselves have changed quite significantly.
Yeah, so your standard sort of your Cadians, your Cachetans, your Kree, they aren't there as this is the Cadian doctrine, but they're there in spirit. So you have an overall regimental doctrine that everybody knows, and that's Born Soldiers, which essentially is your sort of Hammer of the Emperor as we know it now.
Yes.
But that just goes on to your baseline everything, really. That is your standardized regimental doctrine. It also has a way of officers with that doctrine of giving their leadership to other units. However, you then have a selection of regimental doctrines that if you don't want to take Born Soldiers, you can take 2 of the others. And these are sort of your way of customizing your force, and kind of Cachetan, Krieg, those kind of old school doctrines are in here in spirit, just not you must take this if you are that particular type of guardsman, essentially.
Yeah, so things like your Cadians, for example, unlike other 9th edition codexes, they don't have, this is the Cadian doctrine, and this is what Cadians get in addition to being Cadian, and also a relic and a stratagem and a warlord trait. That doesn't exist in here. The whole kind of feel of it now is that the way that the Imperial Guard work is that they are made up of mixed regiments and divisions anyway.
It's really nice.
So to have an entire army of Talon, or an entire army of Astroyan, or an entire army of Catachan, don't get me wrong, super cool.
Very cool.
And you can still absolutely do so.
Can still do this, yeah.
And it's also quite nice because in the fluff it gives you references to them.
Yeah,
so I mentioned the Talon, for example. There's a custom regimental doctrine called Swift as the Wind, and they literally say Talon are well known for this.
Yeah.
But you can combine that with something else. You get a really good degree of flexibility.
It's really nice. It adds a nice layer of balancing the sort of where the Imperial Guard now are in terms from a narrative perspective, with then the crunch of how your rules work. And it's a really cool one. Some of them are, you have to take this as just one doctrine. You can't add two together.
I think that's only the one, yeah.
Or is it just, I think it is just that one.
It's just the one.
Trophy Hunters add strength to your attacks if you're going after monsters or vehicles, which is obviously quite powerful. So then that becomes just your doctrine for your army as opposed to mixing and matching two of the others. Yeah,
so it's also worth pointing out as well that Born Soldiers, the 6s to hit auto wound, your Hammer of the Emperor, that's the generic one, but that is a regimental doctrine. You do not get to keep that. No. It is gone. So Hammer of the Emperor is gone in so much as you don't get to combine that with
you can't add it on top of other things.
No. So there's a few quite powerful ones in here, as mentioned. I do quite like, but a lot of them you have to kind of build around. So Born Soldiers is a very good generic one, which you can generally always get use out of, but a lot of them give you a keyword which interacts with stratagems, or a very specific. So a really nice one that I like is Mechanized Infantry. So units with this doctrine can disembark from non-aircraft transports after it's made a normal move. You can't move again that phase, and you can't charge, but it's the sheer fact that you can move your chimeras, jump out, shoot something, steal an objective. It's really, really cool. And they don't use like the Armageddon, like the Steel Legion for that, but they're referenced elsewhere, I think, under industrial efficiency. So you can still basically make an Armageddon Legion.
It gives you a nice flexibility of having that. If you've got an army you've loved and had for ages, you can kind of recreate that fluff side of things into your army rules. But for new people coming to this book, you can then just do Born Soldiers and keep it simple, and that's then easy to pick up and play with, I guess.
So like the Talon one, I know Talon's very popular. You've got Swift as the Wind, which gives +1 movement to all your infantry, +2 inches to everything else. You also add 1 to charge rolls, and then you could combine that with Recon Operators, which gives all your infantry, cavalry, and sentinel units a 6-inch pre-game move. Very nice. You're really playing into that fast scout, like guerrilla warfare style. So there's lots of really cool stuff.
It's really cool.
So that is the regimental doctrines. We will now move over to the data sheet rules because there's also quite a bit to cover there, which will give you context for the rest of the book. The data sheets. So it's also worth pointing out, we mentioned that Hammer of the Emperor is not in this book, it's Born Soldiers. Armor of Contempt is not in this book. There is no rule like it in this book. Well, there kind of is, but it's not a generic rule that all your tanks get. And also you don't get to ignore indirect fire. So there's no ability like steel wall that allows you to do the -1, or artillery bombardment, which allows you to ignore it. So you don't get to do that. It's not allowed.
Nope, not it.
Depending on how this is released with the Balance Dataslate in its current format, I can't see that being updated day one with this, because that's not how Games Workshop does things. You know that you're not to use Armor of Contempt, and you know you're not meant to ignore the indirect fire. So don't do it. It's very naughty. You will be sent to the serfdoms, and you will be
on the front lines
as a white shield on the front lines to die.
Tally ho.
So naughty. Stop it.
Very naughty.
No. No.
But
no!
All hope is not lost, because there's lots of very nice new things in here
to
combat that, to sort of even the tide a bit. Especially one of the new things is turret weapons. So turrets no longer double tap, there's none of that on the tanks, they don't double up their hits. But they do something very cool, which is if that model is within engagement range with your turret weapon, you can now shoot out of combat. You do have to take a -1 to hit, but you could get your big gun, and even if it's surrounded by grots or space marines trying to punch through your hull, you could just shoot at something else.
Can my Predator Annihilator do that?
No, not allowed.
But he's got a turret.
No, it's only for the guard. Tally ho.
Can my Castigator do that in a sister's army? He's got a turret.
But now, Chef, there is a -1 to hit, but fear not, guard players, because also turret weapons get a +1 to hit.
Means
built in to all your turret weapons.
the Leman Russ is going to be hitting on freeze.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That is kind of like mathematically roughly the same as getting double tap, but you don't have the movement limitation anymore, which is very nice. And it's also worth pointing out that whilst you don't get the double shots, a lot of the turret weapons, especially on the Leman Russ, have been boosted in terms of shots.
Certainly as someone who has used a Punisher Gatling before, rejoice that you don't have to roll 40 dice anymore and deal with all of that. And it's a lot cleaner and simpler, I feel.
Rejoice that you're hitting on freeze with this
Yes,
as well.
exactly.
It's also worth pointing out with the turret weapons that it's not just for Leman Russ.
No.
Chimeras have turrets, Hellhounds have turrets.
It's a turret keyword, which when you get into the data sheet, it will say on that weapon, turret weapon, and then the various rules for that weapon in particular.
Bane blades have turrets.
Oh, yeah,
Some of them have turrets, not all of them.
Not all of them, yeah.
This isn't a turret, it doesn't move.
No, it's just a big boomber.
Yeah, straight line.
That's unfortunately not a
Bring back
keyword.
firing arcs. So, turret weapons have changed. Orders you might be wondering about. Well, orders are your pure army rule, much like combat doctrines or command protocols or let the galaxy burn.
Yeah.
They are the same but slightly different. So they work in a similar principle of your officers issue an order to someone within 6 inches. And certain things can increase that range, like boxcasters or certain I think there might be a warlord trait that increases it. I could be wrong.
I think possibly,
We'll get to those in a moment. But it's now done in the command phase.
Yes.
So you have to set up for it a bit better.
Which is, I do quite like, because it makes sense it being a commanding
You've commanded them in the command phase. Ridiculous.
And it's quite cool having your command phase be giving out orders, which feels quite nice.
You get to do something in your command phase. So you have to set up for it a bit better, but have no fear. You still get bouncing.
Yeah, that has stayed.
Yes. In addition, if you are issuing a mechanized order, because you've got a lot of orders, which we'll cover in a moment, so you've got 3 categories. You've got regimental orders, Prefectus orders,
Commissar orders,
and mechanized orders. Now, mechanized orders can be issued at a 12-inch range, not just 6, which is quite nice.
Which is very
helpful if you've got an armored spearhead. And all your tanks have squadron, apart from your super heavies.
Yes.
So you could order a basilisk.
And you can bounce those orders along the line.
Bounce them 6 inches, much like a regimental. And it's not like bounce it to 1, it's bounce it to 1 or more.
Yes.
So you can give all of your Leman Russ reroll 1s to hit if you were feeling so inclined.
Tally ho!
Now, of course, on the flip side of things, you go, oh, but it's in the command phase. What if I'm inside a transport? Well, don't worry. You can issue an order when you disembark from a transport, but you don't get to bounce them.
Yes, exactly. You've kind of ordered it to that unit that's inside with you, and then you've jumped out and done the thing.
It doesn't necessarily have to be on the unit inside with you.
Yes.
You could jump out and order it to someone else.
That's cool, yeah.
So you can, again, quite nice with the mechanized infantry.
Yes.
You can move, disembark, and then give it an order to someone else, which is very handy. So you've got a bit of leeway with it, even though it's a bit more restricted in the command phase.
Yes, there's a lot of flexibility here with how much orders there are. Also, in terms of just how this is laid out, there's a nice little bullet point bit to summarize all the bits about orders as well, which is a nice little, just a nice thing to add to the codex. And also this amazingly beautiful piece of artwork.
I believe it's 3rd edition, that bit of artwork. Hold it up to that camera, it's a bit closer. And then it blocks my face, which is nice for everyone at home.
Yeah, this is Chef now.
Yes, I am the guard.
You are the guard.
So, now we mentioned that there's a lot of orders. There are 18 orders to choose from. Now it will depend on who's using it. So you mentioned commissars are Prefectus. It will say on your data sheet, we will cover those in a moment. Generally, officers do regiments, tank commanders do mechanized, and commissars do Prefectus. But there's ways of doing others. Most of them are basically the same name, just better. Yeah,
you certainly, all the familiar faces and names of the orders are here. It's just they've all had a slight glow up or have changed slightly to make them a bit more relevant for 9th edition and how that kind of works now as a game.
Yeah, there's a couple of new ones, but we'll talk about the old classic, Take Aim. So,
yes, had a bit of a glow up this one.
It's not reroll 1s to hit anymore. It's +1 to hit and increase your AP by 1 on everything.
On everything.
In that unit. Which then bounces. To the rest of your infantry. So you've got ballistic skill 3, AP 1, las guns.
Oh!
Seems a bit unnecessary.
It's quite powerful, that, isn't it?
Ballistic skill 3, AP 4, las cannons.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's when you start adding in heavy weapons and special weapons, it's like, ooh, hello.
On a las gun, you go, okay. I'm not sure why they're hitting with the same accuracy as a Space Marine because someone yelled at them with the same punching power as a bolter. Better than a bolter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
fine. Fixed bayonets is basically the same, but for combat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there's a couple of new ones. Take cover's a new one. Gives the unit light cover, or dense if they're already getting
if they're
light.
already getting light, they can get dense, which is quite nice.
Which is very nice. Suppression fire.
It's quite cool.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a unique one here. Basically, you pick, when they fire at an enemy infantry unit, you can only fire at that unit, but if you hit them with at least 5 attacks, doesn't matter what those attacks are, they're -1 to hit until the end of your opponent's next turn.
Which is very nice.
So if they are about to charge you, they're somehow -1 to hit because you suppress them. They want to shoot you, they're -1 to hit. So there's a very powerful utility in there. In addition to the raw strength of just increasing your AP and hits.
You've got a lot of options here, which is very, very nice.
Things like get back in the fight are now a Perfectus order. There's also remain vigilant, which as a Gene Stealer cult player makes me very, very sad. Because it basically means that you can't arrive within 12 inches of them. Yeah, it's a bit unnecessary.
You can also, if they then charge, you can hold steady against them.
If you want to overwatch, you can hit on 5s.
Nice.
There's ways to give your units OBSEC in here, and there's also ways of advancing and remaining stationary.
Yeah, I think the way I sort of see it is Regimental is more buffing up your sort of fighting, whereas Perfectus is more, I guess, a bit more...
There's a lot of utility.
Yeah, the utility and sort of objective control and morale kind of things, which makes sense for Commissars.
So one of the Perfectus orders is duty and honor. You can fall back or advance and do actions, and you can also shoot and do actions.
Yes.
So there's nice utility in here. Orders are still, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, I don't think I did. Orders are still, it's only the latest order applies.
Yes.
It runs out in your next command phase, so you just have to reorder. You can't stack orders.
Yes.
And then mechanized orders, you've got 6. There's ways to give your tanks OBSEC, which is grand.
Very nice.
Gunner's kill on sight is still reroll 1s to
reroll
1s to hit rather.
Pound them to dust is quite cool. It now means
pound them to dust.
I do like pound them to dust. It now doubles the unit when considering it for blast. If you're shooting at a 5-man unit, it counts as 10. It doubles the number of models. So you can kind of, there's a lot of blast weapons in this codex. You kind of get a little bit more efficiency out of them.
Yeah, you can get a bit more efficiency. There's also ways for, so full throttle, you get +2 to your movement, and you also count as remaining stationary even if you advanced for the purposes of shooting.
Yep.
So there's your kind of like your Talon aspect. So a lot of the aspects are kind of rolled into
the overall rules, which again helps with this theming of the Guard or one cohesive force that are fighting together rather than very disparate regiments.
Yeah,
which is very cool.
So lots of utility, lots of power in the orders, but there's also lots of powers in all the extra gubbins and stuff that you get in things like your relics and your stratagems.
Stratagems. Stratagems. There's lots here. We're not going to go through all of them one by one because that would be madness.
If you guessed 4 pages and nearly 40 stratagems, you'd be correct.
There's lots to cover. I think some of as we were saying with the detachments and the regiments, some of the classically Cadian-only stratagems have kind of been rolled into your overall pool of strats. So some of them are still here, and a lot of the greatest hits are still here, but sort of have changed slightly. Your Relentless is still here, your Field Promotion, all the sort of basic stuff we're used to is here. But there's some really cool new ones, and some tweaks to old favourites such as Vengeance for Cadia. Has been toned down quite a bit,
yes.
But is still here. So now it actually on one unit gives, you can add one to the attack's wound roll for a unit that attacks a chaos unit. Yeah. So it's not quite as all-encompassingly powerful as it was before.
It's also specifically a Cadian unit, which is the shock troops, the Kasarkin, or the command squad.
Yes.
Or a platoon unit within 6 of a Cadian officer.
Yeah.
Your tanks are not platoon. No. They are squadron. Or super heavy. So you can't do this on a Bane Blade anymore. Praise be.
Yeah, which is good. They've made some nice changes here. One of my favourite sort of, just to pick out the stratagem.
Yeah, there's quite a few new ones.
Quite a few new ones is Orbital Interference. So if you take an officer of the fleet, once per game in the movement phase, you can essentially stop your opponent's reserves coming in for that turn. Which is... really quite nice.
It is 2 CP.
It is 2 CP.
And it is once per game. But if you
dictate your opponent's game plan to an extent,
yeah, I was going to say,
very nice.
If you decided to go, I'll put my Crisis team in Deep Strike.
Like, oh, hang on to that. I'll keep that in my back pocket.
You can stay there till turn 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay then.
Yeah, it's very nice. Which is cool. You've got stuff like Vicious Traps for your catch towns and things like that. There's some fluffier ones in here too.
as with a lot of these, there's a few cute ones which could just not exist, and it would make the game a lot more streamlined. I've been saying this since day one. Like things like, so vicious traps. Basically, when an Astra Militarum unit that is wholly within an area terrain feature is charged, you can roll a d6, and the enemy unit takes D3 mortal wounds on a 2 to a 5, or 2d3 on a 6+, with ways to get bonuses if you're like Katachan, or a Slime Marbos in your army. If you've got Melter Mines like on your Kasaki. It's cute, it's fluffy, it's fun, it's almost never going to come up, and it could have just been removed and nothing of value would have been lost in terms of ease of accessibility. You know, there's a few like that, you know, smoke launchers. Guess what it does, you know, it's fine, it exists, it is what it is.
It certainly feel them more useful than the strats used to be, which is nice.
I mean, the strats that they used to have outside of the Psychic Awakening books were terrible.
They're all the ones that needed to be sort of blown up a bit, have been, which is nice. So you have got your toolkit now that you can use with your CP, instead of what I often found with Guard, you use sort of a mass CP to take cover every turn.
Yeah, I'm going to take cover and then do nothing.
So it's cool, you've got some flexibility here, which feels really nice.
Yeah, I think the one of the standouts for me is probably, where was it? Armoured Fist is very nice. When an Astra Militarum core unit from your army is selected to shoot, until the end of that phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack against the closest eligible target, if that model disembarked from a transport this turn, you can re-roll the wound roll. That's very nice indeed, because you can do that on your Tempestus Scions, you could do that on your infantry, you could do that on your Kasarkin, so you can do that on quite a lot of stuff. Pretty good for 1 CP, but it's one of those cool stratagems which is like, it's fluffy, it's decently costed, it gives you a powerful effect, but there is a downside in that you can't do it all the time. If it was just, you can reroll wounds for a CP, but like, I'll do that every turn.
Splendid.
So it's one of those nice stratagems which I really like from a design perspective.
Yes.
But yeah, you've also got your standard take a relic on a sergeant, take an extra warlord trait on someone, as all the usual suspects. But tank cases are still here. They are the pointed upgrade now.
Yes.
Again, shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone in any way.
In certain how the book's been going, it follows that similar structure now.
Yes, some of these are wildly good. So you can take these on a battle tank or a super heavy. You can't take artillery upgrades anymore, so a Basilisk or a Manticore can't have them, but they've been given stat boosts, which are basically
your classic full payload on a Manticore has kind of been rolled into its stats now, but we'll come to that.
There's a couple of decent ones in here. There's a couple of unnecessarily powerful ones in here. So there's things like, and they're all pretty cheap. They range from 15 to 25 points on a battle tank. Bear in mind, a Rogel Dawn is a battle tank. And on your super heavies, they range from 30 to 40. My personal favorite, just from a rules perspective, but also I hate it from a rules perspective, is Knight of Piety. You get a 5-up invulnerable save.
Nice.
You also get a 5-up shrug against mortal wounds.
Oh, hello.
One or t'other would have been fine.
But both is
pretty good for 25 points on a Rogel Dawn.
Or you could 35 points, stick it on a Baneblade.
Yeah, stick it on a Baneblade. What's one of your main weaknesses of your really tough tanks? Mortal wounds or high AP weapon? I've got it covered.
I wouldn't have thought so. I really like Veteran Commander. Just because it means you can dip into another Regimental Doctrine, which is quite nice. And as far as I can see, combo-wise, you could always whack that on for Trophy Hunters. So you get +1 strength and all your big guns.
Yes.
And whack that on a Rogel Dawn or on a Baneblade, and then ta-da!
All of your attacks against vehicles and monsters will get +1 strength.
So you can only punch that bit harder, which is very nice.
It helps you go from the 4 to the 3 bracket, which is pretty handy. Meticulous Calibrator is also a very powerful one for only 20 points on a battle tank or 40 on a super heavy. You ignore all cover, so you ignore dense and light, which is quite nice, incredibly powerful. These are very good, and I can see pretty much most of these having a use. Like even things like Mechanical Pack Rat. Mechanical Pack Rat! Mechanical Pack Rat! Mechanical Pack Rat is basically transhuman physiology, but on a tank.
I quite like it. Human physiology.
You probably don't need it, but it's nice to have.
Yes. I think most of the time you'll probably, if you're taking one of the bigger tanks, you're putting lots of points into it, you'll think about which one of these you'll take to have a plan around that particular vehicle.
Next up is the Psykana discipline. It's fine.
It's okay.
I don't think there's any standouts here, weirdly.
No, there's a lot of interesting stuff in this book that weirdly it sort of gets a bit sidelined.
Yeah.
There's Night Shroud, you're getting the sort of transhuman to be hit. Essentially, you can put that on. You're building that classic kind of.
You can put it on a Titanic, but only if you cast it on an 11+.
Which is quite fun.
The classic strategy of hiding 2 Psykers behind a Baneblade, making it -1 to hit and +1 save. Colonel, I see you there. You cheeky devil, you. You can do the transhuman to hit, but it's very difficult to do. It's not reliable. Psychic Barrier is now just a 5-up invuln. So they're still here. Some of them have been toned down. There's no real standouts, but there's some decent enough utility.
And I don't mind it being more of a nice add-on, because Psychic and the Guard Army is sort of nice to have, rather than their core stuff now is about your tanks and your infantry, which makes sense.
Likewise, the same goes for Warlord traits.
I think.
To be fair. There's a few old classics in here. Grand Strategist is still here. It's still refund a CP when you use a command point on a 5+. Great, very nice to have. Always useful. And now that your stratagems are better, you actually are kind of
might use it.
You want to use that a bit more. There's a few odd ones like Frontline Combatant. Your melee attacks with your Warlord and only your Warlord get exploding 6s and +1 to wound. Like whatever.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to have my squishy officer on the front lines.
And there's a few very good ones in here. Superior tactical training. You can pick a one of the orders that you don't have access to, and you gain access.
You gain access to the other tree, which is very nice.
So you can have a officer on foot giving tank orders or giving Profectus orders. So there's really good flexibility in there. You also have a separate tree for Tempestus Warlord traits. There's only 3 to choose from. These are basically some of the old Scion doctrines.
Essentially, they kind of folded that in. But you get auras, which is really nice.
It's a 6-inch aura for infantry. My personal favorite is precision targeting, which is whenever you make a ranged attack, you just don't get cover.
But they do not get the benefits of cover.
Cool.
It's very cool.
Okay.
You've got ways of like drill commander buffs your rapid fire, stuff like that. It's all the kind of stuff we'd expect. For Scions, but now it's more attached to the commanding officer.
It's attached to the commanding officer, which is nice. And then relics. So because you don't have, here's a Talon. So as we've seen with many books in previous 9th edition codexes, it's been, here's like your page of, let's use Chaos Space Marines, for example. Here's Emperor's Children, and here's your 2 abilities, and also your relic, also your stratagem, and also your Warlord trait. You don't have that in here, so it is a bit condensed. But then you do the Custodes thing of going, I've got 3 pages of relics.
A lot of relics.
And most of these are, again, similar to previous versions, but now they're not like locked behind stuff. So the armor of Graf Toschenko is explicitly a Vestroyan relic, but Vestroya as a keyword doesn't exist anymore, so anyone can take it. That's the mindset of the codex. There's a few in here which are cute. There's a few in here which are
very nice,
very powerful. So Relic of Lost Cadia is a classic. It's still in here. That does specifically affect Cadian only. And it's Cadian infantry, which is the only thing that you can have. But it then gives them a once per battle in your command phase, a 6-inch aura of +1 weapon skill, ballistic skill, attacks, and leadership.
Which is very nice.
Okay. I've got ballistic skill 2 Kasarkin, I guess, with +1 to hit from an order, because just in case.
Why not?
Okay. And you've still this once per game. So
you've got your refractor field for the Tempestus Prime, which we know is still there.
But that's infantry only now.
It's kind of been tweaked to fix the issues with it, I guess.
There's a few that they've basically got Teeth of Terror.
Which is quite cool.
So that's not special anymore.
Potentially the standout, I think, for us.
The standout, because it's a standard. So we'll get to the standards in a minute. Standards are already very good.
Very good.
So I'll preface it now. You're going to want a command squad with a regimental standard, because that gives you reroll 1s to wound for your core units in 6-inch range. So 1, huzzah, they do something. Great success. But also, you're going to want them. There's an upgrade for that as a relic. So bear in mind, this is in addition to your reroll 1s to wound. Your core units ignore all modifiers to hit. This is only for ranged attacks, though. They ignore all modifiers to hit, and they also ignore all wounds denial things. So feel no pain, don't care about it. Things like, oh, you decided to bring Gazgul, I guess I'll just shoot him with all my infantry and kill him in a single shooting phase.
It's not always a 6-inch aura.
Don't like that one. It seems a bit much.
It's one of those things that we always say with the relics. You want to have a nice element of choice when you've got stuff like that. It's like,
it's an auto take.
Taking that one.
It's an auto take, which is just kind of sad.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, I think the other standout for me is Kurl's Aquila.
Yeah.
Again, an old classic, but it is now basically Agents Effect. So if you really want to put the hurt on them, you just go, oh, Kurov told me to counter you, and somehow your transhuman physiology costs an extra CP.
Do CP now.
Do you have a standout?
Well, I was going to mention the standard.
You have to give that one to me for the
yeah, because I wanted you to have that one. But yeah, you've got Claw of the Desert Tigers here. There's a lot of, I like the fluffy ones because they seem really cool and unique to the Guard fluff. But yeah, that finial of...
Was it finial of the Nemradesh first? Sure.
Yeah, it's quite something.
Yeah, there's good options in here, but there are a couple of auto takes, which is always a downside. So that covers the Army Gubbins section of the book. Now let's get to the nitty-gritty of the data sheets.
Data sheets. It's a big old book, the Guard Codex, and there's a few new faces.
Well, quite a few, actually.
Generally speaking, the data sheets, what you would expect as the stat lines have kind of stayed the same. You know, Guardsmen aren't suddenly toughness 8 or anything strange. They're all, you know, as you would expect. Lasguns kind of still feel like Lasguns. Yeah. Guardsmen still feel like Guardsmen. Leman Russ just have a 2-up save.
Yeah, that's built in.
All what you'd imagine. Some of the cannons have had a glow up, and we'll get to those in a moment.
Indeedy.
But I think what's most prudent is probably to go over the new faces in the Codex.
And there are a number of them.
There's quite a few.
I think they've received like, what, nearly 10 new kits?
Yeah.
I think it's like 12 new kits, but 10 new units overall.
Yeah, because you've got new kits to older models, but then also you've got brand new units entirely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So to start with, we have Lord Solar Leontus. I think Leontus.
I'm going to call him Leonidas.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to
call him Leonidas, and everyone's going to say, "Why are you here in 40k? You look like a Sigma model."
Yeah. It's. I'm not sure how.
He's a great model.
It's a cool model. It does. I mean, the artwork here looks. He looks great. Look at him. Chief Horseman. But I am not sure how I feel about it model-wise. However, in terms of what he can do, he's quite something. Yeah. So. He's got weapon skill 2, ballistic skill 2, he's pretty tough, he's quite choppy in combat, but that's not what he's really there for. What he is your sort of commanding linchpin of your Imperial Guard force. So he knows all 3 of the regimental orders, so he can order to tanks, he can order to troops, he can do the whole kit and caboodle, which is very nice. He gives an aura, being a senior officer, which is something new, so they give an actual aura of re-rolling hit rolls, which is nice. He in particular can also reroll wound rolls of 1.
Heroic senior officer.
He's a heroic senior officer. But my standout for me is Lord Commander Solar. In your command phase, you can select 1 friendly Astra Militarum core, Astra Militarum character, or Astra Militarum battle tank unit within 6 of this model. Till the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, you can reroll the hit roll. And if that unit is core, you can also reroll the wound roll.
Yeah. Now, it's worth pointing out that your tanks are not core.
Yes.
So that's good.
Which is very good. Yeah.
That would have been a bit scary. Woo!
Yes.
It's a very powerful rule.
But you can get the Chapter Master rerolls to hit on a lot of stuff, essentially.
Chapter Master rerolls on a Rogal Dawn is very strong.
He's very strong.
Again, can't be used on a Baneblade. Thank goodness. Yeah. But he can issue orders to... Super Heavies. Yeah. He's the only one that can issue orders to Super Heavies. I think there's a tank case which allows you to issue orders to Super Heavies.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So you can give your Baneblade like reroll 1s to hit if you're so inclined. As can Lord Sir. And he can issue 3 orders.
Yes.
So he's got loads of flexibility. In addition, he can, I think they previewed this on Warcon, the Collegiate Astralex. Basically, he's got a Rolodex of super tactics. That's what I like to think of it as.
Yeah.
It's like, that one.
That one.
So they've previewed that, which is a good little rule. And he also halves all damage and has a 4-up in bomb with his 8 wounds.
Yeah.
Because he's got a magic helmet.
He has got a very fancy hat.
Yeah. So yeah, he's good. He's very good. We then have Creed! Ursula Creed.
She's very cool.
Trunchbull herself.
Trunchbull herself, yeah. You will be put in the chokey.
Yeah, you are going into the chokey and you don't have a choice in it. I mean, she's got twin pistols. She's basically Usaka Creed in terms of she's got his weapons.
Pistols are called Duty and Vengeance.
I mean,
very cool. I mean, you know, if she's within 12 inches of shooting those pistols, something's probably gone horribly wrong for your battle plan.
I mean, that's true.
But still, it's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, she is. She can issue free orders. She is a commandant, as mentioned. She can give. Each time this model issues an order to a unit until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the strength characteristic. Now, that doesn't bounce.
Yeah, it doesn't bounce. Yeah.
It specifically says not with regimental tactics, but you can just go. I'm going to go you, and you.
Yeah.
You can all have +1 strength.
You can all have +1 strength,
which is very nice. In addition, you can use the command reroll stratagem twice per phase,
which is quite nice.
And she also has a reroll 1s to hit aura.
Very nice.
She's great.
She's really cool.
Yeah, she's really good. The Cadian Castellan is basically her with the reroll 1s aura.
Yeah.
And can issue 2 orders, and that's it.
Yes.
Like,
your Castellan is a kind of your almost not named character senior officer, so to speak. If you don't want to go the Solar or Creed route, you could take Castellan, who's sort of your most senior officer on the board.
Yeah. He works like the company commanders worked in being an individual character, because the company commanders are now in a platoon command squad again,
which is cool. Which I really like. It makes sense.
It should have been.
So you have to think about taking a command squad if you want platoon commanders, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, or use them as Castellans.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is really nice.
Which is fine.
Yes, you've then got your tank commander.
Yeah.
So he can give orders to the squadron. He can't benefit from his own orders, which is quite important now. Which is good. Ballistic skill 4 base, so ballistic skill 3 with his turret weapons.
Yeah, it is worth pointing out that the tank commander is less ballistic skill, but still effectively the same, but only on his turret.
Yes.
But this is also reflected in their points being a lot cheaper, which we will get to in the next section. Whilst we're here, because this kind of ties in with the Leman Russ, we'll talk about the weapon glow-ups that you mentioned as well.
Yes, because there's been quite a few changes here. So your humble battle cannon.
Humble no longer.
Yeah, humble no longer. Yes, the Leman Russ battle cannon is now heavy D6 plus 3. So you're going to get a lot more shots out of this than you used to before.
On average, that is the same as firing twice.
Yes.
It's only worse if you were firing with the stratagem at a vehicle, or if you're firing at a big unit for blast. But remember that your normal battle tanks are getting +1 to hit and can use a battle tank out of combat. It's very nice. Can't tag them,
which is really, really nice. And it's strength 8 -2, damage 3. So
as you would expect from, like, if you were expecting that to happen from looking at like the knight battle cannons, guess what?
Yeah,
it happened.
It's evened it out. So also it's nice that you just know battle cannons are more have a general feel across all the armies, which is nice. I really like the Vanquisher battle cannon, which is essentially now.
No, that says railgun.
Yeah, it's essentially a railgun.
That says railgun.
Yeah, for want of a better, it's heavy 1, strength 14, -5, D3 plus 6 damage, and then you can't make invulnerable saves against it, and the target suffers D3 mortal wounds.
It's a railgun.
It's a railgun. It's a railgun.
I mean, technically the railgun is better by virtue of doing 3 mortal wounds.
Yeah. But it's essentially a railgun.
But it's a railgun. But the Tau have superior technology.
Well, you know, they get 3 more wounds. They get D3. Fairsies.
I mean, look, to be fair, it's about time that the Vanquisher actually felt like an anti-tank weapon.
It is nice. For me, that's why I like it, because it just feels like, you know, it's a tank sniper.
Yeah.
It should feel that way. And I think that's how I feel about a lot of this, the data sheets themselves.
They do feel like they should be doing their assigned role.
Yes.
Yeah. Apart from the plasma cannon, the execution of the plasma cannon is probably the best weapon.
It's probably the standout.
Yes, it only has a 36-inch range, but remember that you don't need to do half movement for like double taps or anything anymore. It's D6 plus 3, same as a battle cannon. When you overcharge it, it's strength 8, damage 3, same as a battle cannon, but it's AP 4.
Yeah.
You do get hot, but remember you can just do gunner's kill on sight to reroll once. So I would argue it's just a battle cannon, but better.
Yeah.
Realistically.
I think you'd probably end up taking that 9 times out of 10.
Because 36-inch range doesn't really matter on the small board sizes that we've got.
Yeah.
Likewise, a Punisher Gatling cannon. Oh no, you're not rolling 40 dice anymore, but your dice are better because they are strength 6 and AP 1.
Yeah.
So for those of you lamenting the loss of Weapon Expert and your -1 AP on your Punisher, have no fear. It's built in.
It's built in. Your Demolish is still here, 24-inch range, D6 on the shots, but strength 10 -3, damage D3 plus 3.
Yeah, so it's
that kind of thing we were expecting now, of stuff is less swinging and a bit more precise which is very nice.
Yeah, so yeah, and that will apply to Leman Russes as well.
Yes.
It's also worth pointing about just the upgrades that you've got. You've only got 2 upgrades you can take now, the Dozer Blade and the Armor Tracks. This will apply to pretty much every vehicle that can all take these. Armor Tracks gives you the Armored keyword, which ties in with certain stratagems, and also gives you a +1 save against damage 1 weaponry. Nice, means you can not be plinked off.
Which is cool, it kind of feels quite fluffy that way.
The Dozer Blade means you can ignore all modifiers to move, advance, and charge.
Scoop things up.
Yeah, and also gives you Dozer Blade as well. For a keyword. It's also worth pointing out that the Leman Russ, as you mentioned, they do get a 2-up save base now, and they also get an extra wound. So they got 13 wounds. So you can't get 2 lucky las cannons and then you're done. But as mentioned, you don't have Armor of Contempt, so swings and roundabouts, right? We've talked about the platoon command squad very briefly in terms of the banner. They do work, as mentioned, as a cohesive unit. They are a character, so you can't shoot them. So actually a really good place to put some heavy weapons and special weapons.
That's really nice,
your banner is an auto take, I would say. Your Medipack, 5-up shrug, whatever. Master Vox is quite nice because it gives you a 24-inch range for your orders, as long as you're giving it to a Voxcaster. But remember that everything's free. All of your upgrades are pretty much free.
So you're pretty much always going to
have a Voxcaster. And then you can bounce it because I think you can now. It's worth checking that actually with the Regimental
If that's
Tactics.
changed.
So every time a model from your army has the Astra Militarum keyword, each time they issue a regimental order, you can select 1 or more other friendly platoon units within 6 of that selected unit. So you can now do the 24-inch range and bounce it 6 inches that way. Whereas before, I think they had to be within 6.
Within the 6,
So now you've got even greater flexibility on your bouncing.
They can call them, and then the guy tells everyone what
they relay it.
Yeah.
You've also got a Cadian command squad, which is basically the same as a normal command squad, has the Cadian keyword, and I believe can't take a heavy weapons team. That's kind of it. All of these issue 1 order, so it's, these guys issue 1, Commandants issue 2, Solar and Ursula issue 3. Platoon commanders, the elite choices, do not exist anymore. So this is the only way to get orders, but you're bouncing orders anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's also worth pointing out that the Cadian keyword and the Catachan keyword and the Krieg keyword do not stop you from getting a Regimental Doctrine. It's just a keyword for the purposes of stratagems.
Like they've split, you can take Catachan in your army and it's just like a little Catachan unit.
Likewise, being a Cadian does not stop you from issuing an order to a Catachan. Because you are a combined arms
You're
unit.
1 Imperial Guard, which is nice.
Iron Hand Strachan's still in here. He is basically the same. Primaris Psykers are in here. They can finally cast 2 powers.
Nice.
Fine. Gaunt's Ghosts is an entire page. I'm not doing it. They're basically as they were. You've then got attachés and bodyguards.
Now this is quite cool. I do like this. So if you want to take an attaché, now an attaché is your Master of Ordnance, your Officer of the Fleet, Astropaths, things like that. They now have to be part of a command squad.
Yes, they do.
Which is really cool. You can't just, I'm going to plonk this guy. You have to think about they would be escorted by a command squad of the officers of the day. Do you know what I mean? So that comes across as really nice. I think you can take all
You can put all 3 in the same command squad, but you can't double up on them. And they all do, like the Master of Ordnance actually gives you a really good rule now for your artillery. You pick a visible enemy unit within 30 inches in your command phase, and then all of your artillery reroll once to hit against it, regardless of range. There's no 36-inch range arbitrary amount anymore, which is very good. You've also got bodyguards, so your Nork Dead Og and your Ogryn bodyguards just join a unit. You can only have 1 bodyguard, and basically they always take the damage first. But remember that your command squads are characters, so you're probably okay. Infantry squads, they're the same. They are as they are now. Cadian shock troopers are basically an infantry squad from Cadia that can't take heavy weapons, but can take 2 different special weapons. They also have a special rule.
To note here, you've got, so Cadian, Deathcourts of Krieg, and Catachan, which is like the model ranges that are different to your standard infantry squads, all have their own unit now and could all be taken in the same force. So because of the changes to doctrines, you can mix it up. So you get little special abilities, shock troops, 6s, to hit, score an additional hit.
For your las guns only.
For your las guns
only.
You
don't get exploding 6s on las cannons. You can't take a las cannon in them.
For your Deathcourts of Krieg, you get mini transhuman on those guys, which is quite nice.
Same principle, no heavy weapons in any of these, but you can take 2 special weapons. They've got to be different. You can also take like a Medipack, which puts your first damage suffered to 0, so that's kind of cool.
Nice.
The Catachan Jungle Fighters get exploding 6s in combat, which is terrifying with their 1 attack at strength 3 minus 0 and weapon skill 4.
Fear the Jungle Fighters.
They can also only take 2 flamers because that's what's in the box.
Whatever.
Slime Arbo's still in here. He does what Slime Arbo does. He kills the entire enemy army by existing, because if you go by Slime Arbo facts, he's basically the same. Kasarkin. Or Kasakin. Kasarakin.
I'm a big fan of these models.
I mean, they're great models for a start.
Yeah, they're fantastic models.
Yeah, they have the Cadian keyword, but again, doesn't stop you from anything. They also get an extra regimental doctrine that no one else has.
Which is kind of cool, so you can have specific squads of Kasarkin doing particular roles within your army.
They are a 10-man squad. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Likewise, all of the other units are, and that is the thing that you will find with a lot of the guard stuff, is they are set units. So the infantry squad is 10. Katachan is 10. There's no white shields or conscripts in here, so you can't run 30 conscripts anymore. Deal with it. But you get just better stuff.
Yes.
The Kasarkin are really cool. They've got the hotshot las gun, same as the Scion one. 24-inch range now, which is very nice.
They've also got the hotshot marksman rifle, which changes it to heavy, but then it becomes strength 4, -2, damage 3.
And it's a sniper.
It's a sniper, which is very, very nice.
You can have up to you can have one of those in the unit. It's what you get in the kill team box. They're really, really cool, and they give you some nice flexibility. Priests are here. They work a bit more like chaplains now. So they give you so on a 3+, a core or infantry character can either get +1 to charge rolls and reroll hit rolls in combat. Cool. Or get a 6+ invuln and ignore malediction psychic powers. Cool. Nice. Harker's in here with his heavy bolter. Pretty much the same. Engineers are in here. They now give you a 5+ invuln to a tank,
which is very nice,
as well as healing it, which is very nice. Servitors are servitors. Commissars, they get the Prefectus orders, as we've mentioned. They also can. Summary execution's still in here.
Yeah, it's still. Yeah, commissars are pretty much as you would expect, except their main, I guess, facility in the army now is opening up that tree of Prefectus.
They give you the Prefectus.
So you give you different orders.
Yeah. So the summary execution is when a core unit fails a morale check within 6 inches. You can once per turn though. He can't rapid fire across the entire battle line. He fires it on one. They auto pass the combat attrition basically. Cool. So it's like you lose 1. It's the fluff, right? Ogrins and Balgrins to a lesser extent. They've all gained the extra attack on the charge rolled into their profile. Just base now, as you would expect. They're all -1 damage, which is very nice. Very nice. Ogrins can shoot into combat,
which is quite nice with their ripper guns.
And Balgrins are pretty much the same. Yeah. The slab gives you a 2+ save, and the brute shield gives you a 4+ save. They are both limited to 6-man units.
Yes.
Neither of them are core, and only a commissar can give them orders because they are abhuman. But that does mean you can give them fallback and charge or obsec.
Yeah, weirdly, the Prefectus tree of orders is what you'd want to be giving your Bulgrin Ogrim really anyway. So it kind of comes out in the wash,
which is nice. Rattlings are still in here. 5-man unit of snipers. They shoot and then they run away. Again, pretty much the same. Rough Riders. Woo! Right.
Here we go.
I really like these models. I know the models are fantastic. But I really like these models. What I don't like is how they're better than most things in combat.
They're quite something.
They're very good.
They're quite something. I mean, you're looking at their base stats. You've got a 12-inch move, ballistic skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, 2 wounds. That all sounds fine. They are weapon skill 3.
Sure.
Which obviously, if you do fixed bayonets,
they're hitting on 2s.
Okay. They've got 2 attacks, 3 on the sergeant.
Yeah.
And when they charge, in the fight phase, if this unit made a charge move, then until the end of that phase, add 2 to the strength characteristic of models in that unit.
So they're strength 6. That's all right. Doesn't seem that good, Chef. What are you talking about?
Well, their melter tips are another +2 strength.
Oh, so strength 8.
They're strength 8, -4, damage 3.
But we've put fixed bayonets on them, so they're -5.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That is 5 now.
Statistically, a unit of 10 can kill a knight in 1 round of combat on the charge.
Yeah.
Seems a bit much. Now, obviously, you've got to get them there, so they are not the toughest thing around. I will give you that point. They are only toughness 4. They only have 2 wounds. They only have a 4+ save. But you can hide them, of course.
Yes.
And they are quick. 12-inch move. And also because they're horsies, they're death guard. They ignore all minuses to move, advance, and charge rolls because they're horsies. Have you ever seen a horse trying to walk through a crater? Doesn't really work. But apparently, the Attilan horses are made of better stuff.
They're proper. They're horse masters.
They are horse masters. Look, they're very good.
They're really good.
Because the hunting lance also gives you really good utility because not only do you have the melter tip, you've got the frag tip as well, which basically gives you strength user, so remember 6 on the charge, AP 1, damage 1, but every hit does 2 additional hits.
Yes.
So every hit does 3 hits because you're launching a frag grenade.
So you can suddenly blend stuff, like big units of stuff.
Basically, if you hit twice, you've done 6 hits.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So they're really good at clearing hordes as well as dealing with heavier stuff as well. So
There's
they
huge
are
flexibility
a
there.
very good unit. The Goad Lance is actually also very good. You can only take 1 per 5. You can put it on the Sergeant, which is what I would do.
Yeah.
+2, -3, damage 2. Every time you hit, you do an additional hit, and against vehicles, if you wound them, they take a mortal wound in addition. So they're kind of a mix of both the Hunting Lance and the Melter Tip.
Yeah.
But more utility. Scout Sentinels, Armored Sentinels. I'm not a fan of the new models, I must admit.
Yeah.
And rules-wise, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, they haven't really changed, yeah.
They're just a bit beefier because the models are bigger, so they're toughness 6 and 7 wounds now.
Yeah.
And the Armoured Sentinels have the free up save.
Like,
and
if you've been running Sentinels and you look at the book, you'll notice there, with a lot of these things, there's slight tweaks that you might see an AP here or a strength here. They kind of streamlined stuff a bit and kind of made it more akin to other things you expect to see in 9th, but for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much the same.
They're basically the same.
They fulfill the same role.
Yeah, basically the same. Hellhounds are, again, pretty much the same. They always explode on a 5+ now, which fills me with joy.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what they're equipped with.
It's a shame you can't make it explode on a 4+.
Yes. The Inferno Cannon is basically the same, I think.
Yeah. The cannons change ever so slightly, I think.
Oh, it's
how many shots
-2 on the Inferno Cannon now. I don't know if they were. I think they were -1 before.
I think they were -1 before as well. Like, and that's what I mean. Stuff has changed slightly to give it a little bit of an extra punch.
It's done the 9th edition thing of let's make everything really killing. And they're also turret weapons, so you can shoot out of combat. So tagging them not so helpful. The Chem Cannon is it's D3 plus 3 shots now.
Yeah.
The Melter Cannon is D6 plus 2 on the shot on the damage and D6 plus 4 at half range, 24-inch range. Otherwise, now interestingly, these are 1 per unit. Yeah, I think they were 1 to 3 before, and then a squadron.
I think you could take you could take them as 1 to 3, but they're
only squadron exists now is the Leman Russ.
Yes.
So you can't take 9 basilisks anymore.
Yeah, no.
You can only take 3. You can only take. I think Wyverns and like the artillery pieces were, apart from the basilisk, weirdly, were always 1 to 3.
But yeah, the basilisks now they are individual models. Yeah.
The Rogel Dawn. Ooh. Yeah. Okay.
Now, actually, it's just its base stats. It is really tough. It's toughness 9 for 1, and you're clocking at 17 wounds, but it isn't a super heavy. It still constitutes a battle tank.
That 17 wounds to me feels so... It almost feels purposefully done to annoy me.
They knew.
Because they can't be shot through obscuring terrain, and they can benefit from dents. Now, you might be thinking, oh, but likewise, they won't be able to ignore it. Stuff with 18 wounds can't ignore it anyway.
Yeah.
So it feels like they've just got the best of both worlds. Yeah. Now, they're not Titanic, as you say, so they can't fall back and shoot. But it doesn't matter because you've got a big old turret that could shoot out of combat anyway.
Speaking of the turrets, there's 2 major choices here. You've got the Twin Battle Cannon, which is heavy 2d6, 8 -3, damage 3, blast. Or you have the Oppressor Cannon, which is 19-inch range, heavy D6 plus 3, strength 10, -3, damage 4.
More like oppressive cannon.
I think for me, that would probably be my choice.
That's the winner for me. Yeah. The shots are a bit more consistent on the bell curve. It's higher strength and it's higher damage.
Yeah. It also comes attached with a coaxial autocannon.
You get a little bonus autocannon.
A little bonus autocannon, which is very nice.
They've got lots of upgrades you can give them, multi-melters and melter guns. Like all of those cost extra points. And you do come in at 250 base.
Yeah. This is good. It's one of those things that with the wounds isn't almost, it's odd because by the time you added all the upgrades, you're getting into the sort of super heavy kind of realm anyway. So it's just an odd place for it to sit. It's kind of between the two.
Betwixt and between.
Yes.
It's good. It is also a squadron, so you can give it orders.
Yes.
Heavy weapon squads, they come in threes. Nothing has changed for them. The new Field Ordnance Vetri.
Yes.
I really like these models.
They're really cool.
They come in units of 2. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're toughness 4. They're 6 wounds. They're artillery. They've got a 4-up save. And you've got a choice of 3 weapons. You can give them a mix and match, but you can only have 2 in the unit. Yeah. So you've got the Bombast Field Gun, which is D6, strength 7, -2, damage 2, ignore line of sight, blast. You've got the Heavy Las Cannon, which is 2 shot, strength 10, -4, D3 plus 3 damage.
Heavy Las Cannon.
Yeah, and also rapid fire Heavy Las Cannon, sure, why not? And then you've got the Malleus Rocket Launcher, which is 6 plus D6, strength 6, -1, damage 1, blast, but needs line of sight, as does the Heavy. These are all 48-inch range, they're all BS4, but they are regimental and platoon, so you can give them all.
They're sort of somewhere between the heavy weapons squad and an artillery tank.
Yeah.
Which is quite a nice little position for them to be.
Leman Russ, we've talked about. Basilisks are... The stat lines are the same, but the Basilisk Cannon is now strength 10, -3, damage 2, D6 plus 3 shots.
Yeah.
It's just better.
Yeah, that's the sort of commonality between these sort of artillery pieces.
The Hydra is just better. Heavy 8, strength 7, -2, damage 2, +1 against aircraft, and also does 2 hits instead of 1. Cool. It's also a turret, interestingly.
Which is very nice.
The Manticore is, as you mentioned, basically heavy payload is rolled into the damage. It's only strength 9 now. It's still -2. It's flat 3 damage, but it's D6 plus 3.
Yeah. So all of these
the bell
cannons
curve.
are the bell curve has been shifted. They're all less swingy, but kind of a similar stat-wise.
The Wyvern.
Yep.
46, strength 5, -1, damage 1.
Yeah, it's a little bit stronger now. It's strength 5, but no difference.
The Death Strike.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got some...
It's an entire page of rules. It works like an orbital bombardment in that you need to pick a point and then it becomes active in your next shooting phase, so long as you're not in engagement range. Fine. There's 3 different warheads to choose from, which you can choose after seeing your opponent's army. I do not like that.
Yeah.
At all.
It also seems weird that they're on the battlefield being like, oh, we'll just change out the giant
missile in.
Yeah.
I don't like that aspect of being able to basically counter at the table.
Yeah.
I prefer if you had to choose.
I can see why they've done it, but in a way, I'm with you. It would be nicer to feel like I'm building my list around this idea.
Yeah. And basically what happens is you need a turn to set up, and then the marker explodes, and then stuff within certain ranges takes mortal wounds depending on the missile that you use. So the God Spear is only a 3-inch range, but does 8 mortal wounds on a 2 to a 3, 12 on a 4 to a 5, and 16 on a 6. So you just put it on an objective and go, if you hold it, you die.
Yeah.
Sure. The Plasma Barrage is a bit more of a utility one. It's a 6-inch plus D3 radius. It does D3 on a 2 to a 3. It does D3 plus 1 on a 2 to a 3. D3 plus 3 on a 6, and the 4 to a 5 is 2D3, so a bit more random. And infantry characters are -1 on that roll.
Yep.
And then the Vortex Warhead is my personal favourite from a fun perspective because it is a D3 plus 3 radius. It does only D3 on a 2 to a 3, only D3 plus 1 on a 4 to a 5, and 2D3 on a 6. So it's less range and less damage than the Plasma, but it sticks around on a 4+. So it just keeps going. They're really cool.
Yeah.
I just think they are wildly powerful in certain matchups.
Completely deny areas of the board, essentially.
Chimeras, you can issue orders out of Chimeras now. That's just rolled in. It used to be a stratagem, but otherwise, you know, the Chimera multi-laser is an extra shot and an AP because, I guess.
Yeah, everything's kind of got that little extra something.
That. Taroks are pretty much the same. The Valkyrie, it doesn't have the go in hover, get +1 to hit, but your ballistic skill's better.
It's just built in, yeah.
You can still grab shoot insertion.
Your rocket pods are slightly better. Actually, you get quite a bit better. Strength 6 -2 now.
Yeah.
But again, they've all just had that little...
As you would expect, glow up. The Aegis Defense line is in here. It's an untargetable barricade, which gives you armor of contempt, as well as the light cover.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's quite intense. I mean, also what you can do is you can then, if you give the take cover, you also then receive dents because you're in cover.
Yeah. And the Super Heavies are here. The Super Heavies are basically, because there's so many, they're all toughness 9.
Yep.
They've all got the 2-up save. They've all got 30 wounds. Some of them, as you would expect, are still, like, they've got transport capacity, fire index. They all have armored tracks, I believe, which is damage 1 is +1
They're armored
save.
base, so you don't have to pay for that, yeah.
And to give you an example of the Baneblade Cannon, it's strength 9, -3, damage 3. It's a turret. It's heavy 3d6. I think it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
It's just a turret weapon now.
Yeah.
So we won't go through all of those because we'll be here for longer than we already are. So we will be back in just a moment to talk about the all-important points and our final thoughts. Forgive us, Scions players, we forgot all about you because you're after the Super Heavy.
Yeah, which is odd. And you're in a different colour. It's like you're a little footnote at the end.
Little segment. Yeah, Tempestus Scions received, as you would expect, the glow up that most of the book has had. We mentioned that the Hotshot Lasguns and the Kasarkin are 24-inch range. Same
as
for
the
them.
Scions.
All Scions, well, all the infantry Scions, get Stormtroopers as a rule now, so you don't get a Regimental Doctrine, but you get this built in. It's exploding 6s on all your weapons, regardless of range, which is great.
Which is quite nice.
Very nice. Your command squads work like command squads. You can take a banner for reroll 1s, which is, incidentally, for all core, not just Tempestus.
Which is pretty nice.
Which is pretty nice. And the command rod lets you do Perfectus.
Yes, you can dip and choose from the 2 trees of orders.
But you can only do them on Scion units.
Yes.
So fine. Yeah.
I think that's more if you wanted to take a pure Scions force, you can.
Yes.
To note as well, when you're mustering your army, if it is all Scions, they count as troops rather than elites as they are. So you can
give them obsec, but you've got to be in a pure detachment.
Yeah.
And the normal sort of, you can have any number with special weapons in a command squad. Likewise with your Scions, you can take them in 5-man units up to 10-man units. Yep. One of the few units that gives you the flexibility.
Yes.
It's because the boxes come in 5s. And every 5 models, 2 of them can be given a special weapon. Again, they keep deep strike.
They're as you would expect.
And the Tarox Prime is the same, but has armored tracks.
Armored tracks, you know, it's Gatling cannon and its hotshot lasgun's got slight tweaks, but again,
they're
just
pretty
a nice
much
little glow up.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. They're still toughness 6, they're still fast, they've still got 10 wounds, 3 up save. So that's it. You then Crusade Rules is at the back, which is very nice for ease of use. But points, no. These guys are undercosted.
Yeah, I think, weirdly, the data sheets are fine.
The data sheets are fine.
Compared to some of the books we've seen recently, it's not like, oh no, from the data sheets. It's just you get a lot in 2,000 points.
Here is my main issue with it. I say they're undercosted. I think actually, for their stat lines, they're about right.
Yeah.
They are immediately skewed by the fact that the orders and the everything else that you can do buffs them up to the 9s to quite a crazy degree. Yeah. So let's take the basic infantry squad. They are 65 points.
Yep.
Your las cannons and your plasma guns are free. Your vox casters are free. The only thing you pay for is a plasma pistol or a power sword. Whatever, I don't care. I don't care.
I've got a las cannon.
Your Tempestus Scions, they are 11 points a model. But your special weapons are free, so they're cheaper than they are now.
Yeah, they come out in way cheaper, yeah. It is that thing, as I think, it's the layering of stuff where it becomes a bit...
Yeah, 65 points for an infantry squad with a las cannon and a plasma gun does not scare me. It's when you then suddenly tack on the orders and the other layers of rules and this and this and this and this and this and this. Now, yes, of course, you have to pay for those officers and whatnot. Fine. But the officers themselves aren't expensive. Let's go back to my friendly command squad.
Yes.
Bear in mind, that's an aura? Well, it is an aura because I've got my standard, which is free. I've got a heavy weapon in there. Yep. Because why not? Keeps it, look, a las cannon that can't be shot, basically.
Quite nice. Yeah.
Helpful. I will also, because that's 2 of the veterans, I've got the standard, and I'll put a plasma gun in there as well. Why not? And then my commander. Yeah, 75 points.
Yeah.
For a las cannon that can't be targeted, a plasma gun that can't be targeted, a reroll 1s to wound aura, which is probably better than that with a relic, and also an order, which is bouncing.
Yeah, the bouncing...
If orders didn't bounce, I would be, you know what, actually, probably okay.
It's actually not too bad, yeah. It's being able to give an entire, essentially a battle line of guardsmen. Yeah. What?
In fact, you know what? I probably won't bother with the plasma gun. I'd probably make him a Vox caster because then he can bounce it all the way across the battlefield because he can be nice and safe next to a Rogal Dawn.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, the Rogal Dawn, as mentioned, is 250. And he probably verges into the 300 mark by the time you've given him lots of buffs. So he's not the cheapest around. Leman and Russ are 150 base.
Yep. And most of your turrets are free.
All your turrets are free. Doesn't matter what turret you've got, they are free. And most
you have to pay for the plasma sponsons, but otherwise you get heavy bolters.
Yeah, so plasma are 10 points, heavy bolters are 5 points, a las cannon is 5 points, your storm bolter, your heavy stubber, your heavy flamers, your...
all that stuff, yeah.
You know, your armored tracks, they're all 5 points. But you're looking at around about 165 to 175 points for a tank, which is generally going to be getting +1 to hit all the time.
Yeah.
Can't really be tagged in combat because you just go, well, my main weapon, you're not shutting down. Can be given orders, which bounce, has a 2-up save, toughness 8, and 13 wounds. So it's difficult to kind of take out in one hit.
Yeah.
That's the thing. A railgun can do what? 12 wounds?
Yeah.
Can't kill it in one go.
Yeah, exactly right. You're going to struggle to
Well, it's fine. I'll finish it off with my pulse rifles. You go, well, I've still got a 2-up save against your pulse rifle because I've got armor tracks.
And also, you're then getting points left over to be able to add the tank cases as well.
Yeah, and that's before you go to tank cases. Leonidas is quite expensive. He's 170.
Yeah. I think he does I would say he does quite a lot.
He does a lot. He does a lot. This is true.
Look, you're not going to use him as a beat stick. He's not charging into combat. He is there to potentially power up a whole sort of castle of cannons and infantry.
Creed is only 80 points. I would say she is a bargain for 80 points.
For 3 orders as well.
For 3 orders with the +1 strength on those orders as well. Again, not bouncing, but fine. yeah, I think she's a bargain. Tank Commander is only 10 points more, mainly because you're paying for the orders.
Yeah.
And you're not getting the bonuses to ballistic skill anymore. But you know what? That's fine. 10 points is fine.
Yeah.
For access to the orders, because they're very good. I'd argue that some of the troops are a bit like weird. Like the Katachan are 70 points.
Yeah, I think...
I get it.
I guess
they're 5 points more.
They're paying for their special rule of the jungle fighters, but I think it ends up almost just sort of...
It's worse
them.
because you don't get a heavy weapon.
You
or
can't
a
take the
plasma
heavy
gun.
weapons you want to take.
Yeah.
It's cool that you can take them, and I guess that's the thing. If you do have a Kachtan army, you have a really fluffy army, you can still run those infantry squads, and you don't have to pay that tax. They just won't get the.
Yeah, I would just run them as infantry squads so that I could use heavy weapons and plasma guns. Kasakin are 100 points for a squad. Again, all special weapons are free.
Yeah.
Bulgarins are 30 points or 35 with the Maul, which is still an autocannon in combat. Commissars are 40.
Yeah.
Your Tech Priest is 40. Your Preacher is 40. All those support kind of characters are 40 points.
Yeah, stuff like what your Basilisks are 140.
Yeah, Basilisks are 140.
Your Death Strikes are 160. I do find the Field Ordnance Battery at a weird points cost.
Yeah, they're 130.
130.
Yeah, that's for the 2.
Yes,
for
you do get the 2, but for 20 points more, you could get a Leman Russ. Or
10 points more,
10 points more, you get Basilisk.
For 10 points less, you could have a Wyvern.
Yeah.
So they kind of fill a really weird niche. Now, the advantage is, of course, you can give them the regimental orders. So +1 to hit an AP is actually quite nice.
Yeah.
But swings and roundabouts on those. They're very cool models. They're one of the units which, again, I kind of look at it and go, you know what? You need orders to be very good. And same with the infantry squad. You need orders to be good, but the orders don't feel... The orders don't feel balanced.
No, I think, for me, this feels like a book of sort of two halves. When you look at all the data sheets and you look at the units themselves, you're like, great, this is a really awesome glow up of a much loved army that has really cool stats and everything's kind of been brought into the modern era of 40k. You then have the bit at the front, which we were talking about. It's like almost, 18 pages of rules before you even get to your data sheets?
Rules before data sheets. And this is the problem of 9th.
You kind of get into this realm because that then all stacks on top of each other, and then you end up, by the time you get to look at a guardsman that is probably statted and pointed kind of fairly.
Probably feels about right.
You add all these layers on, so you're like, ooh, blimey.
Yeah. I mean, an infantry squad at 65 points, I would argue, is maybe a little undercosted because of your special weapons being free.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could say, well, if they were 5 points each, the same as a cultist, even though they're better than a cultist, and I don't agree with a cultist being 5 points and a guardsman being 5 points, but whatever. You then go, so I'm effectively paying 5 points for a plasma gun and 10 points for a las cannon. You know what? On a ballistic skill 4 model that's weapons that's toughness free and a 5-up save. Sure, cool, sounds about right. But then the orders compound it.
Yeah.
And then you get to things like the Rough Riders, which, yes, they're not the toughest, but 20 points means they are punching way above their weight if you make them into combat. And weirdly, because they're quite quick and they're ignoring movement modifiers and they hit so hard on the charge, you have to deal with them. You have to deal with them. And a good player is going to use terrain to their advantage. On competitive tables where it's just 2 big L's in the center, you just go, LOL! You can't go through the walls, I understand that, but LOL! You're so fast that you don't care. And there's ways to improve their movement with things like order, move.
Yeah,
gives you +2 movement, for example. So, yeah, they are... As you say, it's a book of two halves. Some of it feels right. Some of it feels... just a bit too overpointed. As a whole, if you're a guard player, you're going to be
you're going to have a great time, I think I like what they've done with all the models themselves, the actual data sheets, and the beating heart of the army, really, is great. I like what they've done. It's just that thing of there's a few too many extra bits that make it quite powerful.
It feels like a combination of the complexity of AdMech, because you need to do a million things in your command phase.
Your command phase is going to be a whole...
And then you've got units which are okay, which are then buffed up to the 9s, maybe not quite to the extent of AdMech, but then you've got the points cost, which feels just underpointed a la early Drukhari, which has now been fixed. But then weirdly, your data sheets aren't on like that Tyrannid level of they're just so wildly good. But then you have that aspect of some of their weapons are on that Votan level where you go, why do you do this? To me, this feels like an incredibly powerful book. And I would argue it is on par with your Nids, with your Votan,
Definitely.
with your early stage Admech, your early stage Drukhari, your early stage Tau. This book, if you're a Guard player, you're going to have a great time. Until you find that no one wants to play you because your army feels quite hard to play against. What I will say is that actually, because you've got so much variety, it's not easy to make a broken army.
100%.
This is the downside of Votan, is sometimes
small
you kind of
pool
go,
of choices.
I don't have much of a choice, but this is really good. Well, I don't have a choice. I kind of have to use it, otherwise my army is really stale. They have a lot of options, which is really, really cool. I don't think you can accidentally make a broken army.
If you have a friend that plays Guard or you play Guard personally, you're not going to immediately be like, oh no, like we'll get into it in the combos video, which you can check out.
Oh, there's some
crazy stuff you can do. But I think for most players that are just enjoying having a fun time, you've got all of the glow ups you want. Your army feels like it can run with the wolves now. It's just, it'll be that. If you want to, you can really deep dive into some pretty horrid combos, but most of the time it will feel just like a fun time. They'll just be a bit more chunky than they were before.
I think it's definitely a book that is very indicative of, this is 100% a 9th edition codex. It's not an 8.5 codex like Space Marines, Necrons. No. One could argue Orcs, some could argue Sisters. It definitely feels very strong.
Yeah.
And it definitely feels like a 9th edition codex. For good and for ill. I hate the idea of AP1 lasguns. I despise it with every core of my being. And you might have to argue, but Chef, you've got to use a character to give that order. Yeah, no, but you're giving it to your entire battle line. Yeah. Why are they better? Why at that point are they as armor penetrating as a bolter, but better in... No, it's a whole thing. Are you going to have a good time with it if you're a Guard player? Absolutely. Do they have weaknesses? Of course, they're still Guardsmen. Yeah. They've lost Armor of Contempt on their tanks. They're going to take some licks. But they are going to hit you incredibly hard. And I think that they just need some points.
Yes, there's a few tweaks. Yeah. That's it.
But what do you guys think? Are you looking forward to this? Are you glad that your army is this powerful after 5 years of waiting? Are you not glad that it's this powerful after 5 years of waiting? Were you expecting to see other things? Do you miss Yarrick? Rest in peace, because he's not in here. Yeah, the old sad man. Times indeed. He's finally sad. There was a brilliant meme that I saw of it, which was Gazgul just going like, "Where is Yarrick? Is he okay? Tell me where is Yarrick? Where is Yarrick? I hope he's all right. If he's all right, I feel terribly sorry." This is it's a really interesting book. Lots of play, lots of options. You're going to have a good time if you're a Guard player. You're not. I don't think you're broken, no. But there's definitely, you can make this very, very strong. But there's certain aspects which just make me go, oh, we could have dialed that back a little bit, but here we
just do the right thing. Have a fun time. Take the units you want to take, and you're going to have a good time, I think is the thing. But yeah, let's chat about it in the comments. Yeah, let us know in the comments below, and if you've made it this far, thank you for joining us, and if you've not done so already, hit that like, hit that subscribe. It helps us out massively in order to keep doing this content for people like you at home. And now that you've finished this video, go and check out our on-demand video on the units and combos. And if you're not an on-demand subscriber, sign up. Consider signing up, because one, it means without their support, we couldn't do this in any way, shape or form. And you get a load more content for your viewing pleasure. Splendid. But until next time, I have been Commandant Chef. You have been Major Bard. Tally-ho. You have been Sergeant Bosses. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.